What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench, guys, for another episode of the All Things Airfix group build and our 1/48 scale Airfix Hawker Sea Fury. Really excited to jump in on this today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to go ahead and start off where we ended last time with the fuselage. Now, the wheel bays are nicely detailed, and I'm loving those. Detail was a little bit soft, so I added a couple extra wires. And we need to go ahead and work on the seams, and we might lose a little bit of detail there, but we'll replace that. And I want to go ahead and work on the outer wing panels. Need to get them sanded, get them dry fitted, and see how they come together. But I think we're actually looking pretty decent. Also, the cowling, we need to come in and do some scribing, do some sanding, get this looking pretty sharp as well. So onto that first time lapse, guys. Let's waste no time. Let's start working on the fuselage seams, get them all nicely sanded, re-scribed, and detailed. Let's do it, guys. All right, everybody, we are back, and we have gone ahead and fixed up all the seams on the fuselage and right there on the leading edges of the wings. And I think it's time to go ahead and turn our attention over to the cowling and, of course, the end of the wing panels. Now, I did have to come in and add a couple of raised details right here on the very top of the cowling. That is okay. It's not exactly perfect, but I think a little bit of sanding will bring that down even more. I wanted to replace the detailing that I lost when I went ahead and sanded out the seam line. So with that all finished up, let's go ahead and move forward with the next time lapse, get the cowling going, re-scribe, sand, get that all nicely glued in, and then turn our attention over to the wings. Try to get those outer portions fitted and installed. Let's push on, guys. We are getting there. Alrighty, everybody, we are back, and I have to tell you, these wings went together decently. They're not 100% perfect, guys, mind you. They do take a little bit of finesse, and you do have to really, really be careful and sand down all the parts before you go ahead and glue them into place. But with a little bit of caution, a little bit of careful sanding, they will drop into location without hassle or fuss. So keep that in mind. Also, when you go ahead and install these wing panels, it's a good idea to focus on sanding down and kind of squaring up the tabs that go into the center portion of the wing, and also the large structure that comes out of that center portion that the wings glue down on top of. Keep those in mind and it should go swimmingly. Now let's go ahead and move over to the cowling. I need to go ahead and glue this into place, and I think at that point the main fuselage will be fairly ready for any sort of extra seam filling. I want to come in with some Mr. Surfacer and basically go over all of the panel lines that are a little bit too prominent for me, and that's really the connection point between outer wing panels and inner wing panels, and then right around the cowling there's a couple of little areas that could use a minute amount of filling. Once we get that kind of squared away, then I think we have to work on our gun sight. I'm going to go ahead and have to scratch build one. I have an idea. I found an old clear part that looks very similar to a gun sight, even though it's not a gun sight. I'm probably going to go ahead and use that and just sand it down and add in a couple extra parts, and then we can go ahead and glue that down to the inside of the cockpit. It's kind of one of those things, right? They don't have a gun sight. We're just going to make one. Won't be necessarily accurate, but it'll be close enough for my eye. Now let's go ahead and turn our attention over to the seams and Mr. Surfacer. I love this stuff. We're going to take a toothpick, and I'm going to take a little bit of this Mr. Surfacer 500, and we're just going to go ahead and drip it into each of the panel lines that are a little bit too prominent. Once this is all nicely filled in, I'll take a Q-tip with a little bit of fingernail polish remover with acetone and just wipe it across the seam, which will help to kind of clean up the edges, liquefy the putty just a little bit. We should be really in good position for going ahead and sanding everything down and making sure that we don't have any excess putty anywhere. So let's go ahead and jump into our third and last time lapse for the day. I want to work on the Mr. Surfacer on all the seams that need it. I want to do a little bit of scratch building on the gun sight, and I want to go ahead and repair the leading edges of the wings and the rear tailplane. There's a very large attachment point between part and sprue. Go ahead and make sure that those are nicely sanded down and filled in. So on with that time lapse, guys. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. Get this thing one step closer to looking like a Sea Fury.
Alright everybody, we are back, and that went really well. In regards to the gun sight, I actually took a part out of an old P38 kit from Academy. I think it was for their Pathfinder version. I don't really know what it's supposed to do in the actual kit, but it looked close enough to me, at least to my eye, to being a gun sight. So I went ahead and I just modified it slightly, shaved down the edges, squared them off a little bit, and I added in 2 little pieces of styrene to act as a holder for the reflector part of the gun sight. And then I'll come in later, I'll paint it up with just some basic flat black, and then eventually I'll drop in a piece of clear plastic and we should be good to go. So I'm really happy with how that's turned out. Not 100% correct, but good enough for me. Might as well use it. As for the rest of the aircraft, gluing in those wing panels wasn't necessarily too difficult, but it did take a little bit of sanding, a little bit of finesse, and afterwards a bit of Mr. Surfacer just to go ahead and minimize those panel lines. They did get in there eventually. I did have to do a little bit of sanding though to make sure that all the edges were nice and square and that the pegs fit where they were supposed to. I'm happy with it. I think it looks pretty good. For the front of the cowling, that is nicely glued into place, and I'm loving how that's looking. Even the parts that I added in to replace some of that detail that I lost, they look okay too. We got the gun sight tacked into place there, and I think this is really coming along, guys. It's starting to look like a Sea Fury, and that makes me very happy. So I think we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. Next time, we're going to come on back, and I'm hoping to go ahead and get the control surfaces glued into place, then get that canopy masked up, paint up the gun sight, and then glue everything together, overcoat it with primer, and hopefully get to the point of pre-shade right before the next episode. So I have a lot to do, but we are on target. I'm hoping to get this thing finished up as quickly as possible. We have a little bit of time left, but I want to make sure I'm staying on target. So until our next episode, you guys know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 5 for the All Things Airfix group build and our Airfix 1/48 scale Hawker Sea Fury. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.